Well, good afternoon, everyone. We've come to the end of an incredibly interesting and substantive day. We really appreciate all of you, all 1,300 of you, for being with us. Based on what Satya Nadella said about video fatigue, I hope you took a few breaks in the 5 hours that we've been on. I think that would be healthy. And we really couldn't ask for a better day and better conversations across the panels and the presentations. Clearly, the work of the future is a topic that generates a lot of discussion in a whole host of different ways. David and I thought we might just take the last few minutes and not try and drag this out too long for everyone, but take a few minutes to reflect on a little bit about what we've learned, what we've been surprised by our 2 years plus with the task force, and talk take a few minutes about observations on the day. I'm now told that we actually have close to 1,500 viewers. So this is incredible. Maybe there's a final push here that's everybody's energized. So maybe I'll turn to David Autor first and talk a little bit maybe about what the surprises have been in this incredible odyssey.
Terrific. Okay. Well, first of all, I found this day really inspiring to hear people from economics, from science and technology, from government, from education, from policy, from the private sector, all talking with one voice about a shared set of concerns. And it was not a rah-rah technology day, nor was it a day of Ludditism. It was a day of realistically assessing what the challenges we face and the opportunities and how really the path is ours to choose. So I found that really inspiring. I also want to say, I do want to take a minute to say hats off to President Rafael Reif and MIT for supporting this effort really courageously. I mean, I think, there was no attempt at MIT to say, here's where you got to land, here's where you got to support, don't say the following. And I don't think when you read the report, you will see we're not playing to type. We believe strongly in the role of innovation in creating opportunity, in creating jobs, in creating possibility, but we also strongly argue that it has done the opposite of that as well, and that if we don't improve our institutions, it will continue to have adverse effects as well as positive ones. Something we can do about that. So I really want to thank MIT for this. I want to leave with two takeaways, and then I'll pass back to you. Things that I came to appreciate during the course of this project that I did not fully appreciate to begin with. One was the incredibly important role played by new work in innovation in creating new work. It's something others have talked about, something David Mindell has talked about, something my colleague Daron Acemoglu has talked about, something now in my research with Anna Solomons of Utrecht University and Brian Siegmiller of Sloan School at MIT that we've kind of documented. But I really now see the interplay between what is eliminated and what is created. And because those two things are never the same, it always creates challenges, even as it creates opportunities. And we really need to worry about addressing those challenges and those opportunities and continuing to foster those opportunities. The second thing I'll say is, I'm a kind of a neoclassical economist. I've sort of been trained that, kind of the best thing you can do is let the market work, and to the degree you interfere, you sort of tend to get in the way. And my view on that has really been changed in the course of this work to see, looking across countries, looking over time, how much the institutions matter in channeling productivity and prosperity to many more people, or failing to do so, as we have seen. And so I really come away from this, concerned about the direction, but optimistic that it's within our hands to change it. And if you take the fully free market view, you can't really do better than what happens on its own. But I come away thinking we can do a lot better if we do it intentionally, as Congressman Rochester said. And let me finally say the most important lesson I think I learned today is from Satya Nadella, which is that you should stand up while you're doing Zoom videos. And I am standing now. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, David. David Mindell?
Thanks. Yeah. Also, let me echo David and Liz's comments. It's been a really exciting day, not least because we've been deeply involved in writing this report and working with the task force and the advisors for many months on this, but it's just a thrill to be able to share it and get the broader audience and have the report out there, and I'm sure get lots of feedback and conversation and new ideas there we have no sense that this report is the last word on this topic, and we hope it's the first word with, I'm sure, errors and things to be improved upon as we move forward. I think the things that I learned the most in this process and that surprised me, well, first, I learned a great deal from my colleagues in economics, particularly David Autor and Daron Acemoglu, about how they think about some of these problems and what some of the macro views look like, and how we think about labor in a rigorous economic sense. That's been enormously valuable. And also, as a friend of mine at MIT said early on, he said, you're going to look at this, you're going to find it's about the computers. And that makes a kind of larger point of the places where we've seen in today's world the workforce and labor most impacted are kind of information technology. Even if you think about e-commerce, it's really still playing out application of the internet to traditional other kinds of business. There's a survey result in the report that warehouse operators, 5% said they adopted advanced automation technology, but 85% of them adopted warehouse management systems, which is basically advanced IT for the warehouse. And so as a historian of technology, kind of underscores this point about, plus or minus, but there are these sort of 40-year cycles of technology. It was actually 60 years from the interchangeable parts production of the Civil War to the assembly line of the Ford Motor Company. And we're still seeing the internet and mobile phones and cloud computing playing out. And but that just says that AI and robotics are coming. They're earlier in their cycle. I like David's quote from the other day that the sky's not falling, but it is lowering and it's coming, and we can see that. And that future is not evenly distributed. We can find places where it's moving faster, learn from those places, and extrapolate out. There are the challenges in technology of adoption and integration are very large. Throughout this process, I've been building a small company and bringing new technology to industrial markets. And there are just many, many small decisions that are made by people with really tough jobs to do about whether to adopt a new technology. Most new technologies don't work very well when they're new. They take a lot of patience. It's expensive to integrate them. We're seeing all those things playing out. And then finally, I just say, I think it's an epical moment for MIT. I agree with David's giving credit to Raphael for seeing the importance of this problem. And going back to an editorial he wrote in the Boston Globe before we started that kind of led to this initiative. For MIT to come out and say, we are accountable and we hold our engineers accountable for the social implications and the social dimensions of the technologies we're creating. And we're going to feed that accountability back into the education, into the research, into the kinds of problems we pose for our young engineers and scientists about what needs to be solved. Those are enormously influential. We can't direct the outcome of innovation per se, but we certainly shape it. And we're going to shape it anyway. We might as well shape it intentionally.
Thank you, David. That's excellent. And perhaps that's a great way to transition into just a few words about what happens next. The Work of the Future task force is, we can't ask the task force to meet indefinitely, though I think there are a lot of us who would like to continue, but it will wrap up its work at the end of this year. But really, I think this is just the beginning for the agenda at MIT. There's so many different parts of the institution that touch this topic. But what we've done in this first piece is really identify, I think, what the challenges are, what the issues are, why, how institutions have failed workers over time. Next chapter, I think, is going to be more and more about the how. How are firms thinking about adoption of new technology? How are they integrating workers in those decisions? And how can we build institutions that are going to respond to the changes, but also help reform and augment and support workers in the process? I would say from my own point of view as a non-technologist, the whole idea of shaping technology was foreign to me when I began this work. The fact that I've spent a lot of time now in manufacturing firms and healthcare and financial services and watched the process of how a new technology is introduced and the ways that social, cognitive, organizational issues play in, has been really eye-opening, and there is a lot that we can shape there. So to wrap up, I want to first and foremost begin by thanking the various teams that have put together this fantastic day. Certainly the MIT Task Force on the Work of the Future team, the IDE team, and the CSAIL team. As I mentioned earlier on, this is our 4th year in doing this, and not surprisingly, we never run out of material to discuss. We never run out of interesting people to bring together. And if anything, as we said earlier, this issue has become more important, not less important, in the time of COVID. I'd also want to make sure that I thank our funders for this, for the project. We've got a number of foundations that have been very, very instrumental in making this possible. Let me just make sure I read all of those. The Ford Foundation, Google Foundation, Joyce Foundation, JP Morgan Chase, Lumina, Schmidt Futures, the Siegel family, Ralph C. Wilson, and Evercore. We very much are appreciative of the work. Early on, we had a number of supporters who helped us make this possible. It takes a lot of focus and a lot of ability to actually support research of students, not just for a semester, not just for a year, but for a couple of years. And we've been really grateful to have that opportunity. So with that, I might say any final words to the Davids, as we say.
I just want to say that creating the work of the future is the challenge of the present. It's something that is immediately in front of us, and that we have an opportunity to do well and thoughtfully. And I hope MIT will help lead that. I hope our efforts will continue. And I know there are many people who will want to contribute to that work, as I think all of us are inspired to do.
Thank you all.
Thanks very much.